what I found interesting when I was looking at your book, and I don't know if you want to bring your book up onto the screen here, because that'd be a great little segue for that. But you actually had the forward of your recipe book done by Sam Hewen from Outlander. Yes, there it is. Amazing. And I know, like, my wife is a huge Outlander fan, so I haven't actually told her that part yet. So she'll be really excited when I tell her. Um, so, like, I'm assuming you must know Sam, or you met him at some point, and then he was able to do that forward for you, or
Talent Talk is sponsored by Company of Rogues Actors Studio, New York-style training for actors at all stages of their journey. With our part-time classes and full-time masterclass program, Rogues provides a unique post-secondary option under the guidance of working professionals. Mentoring and developing professional film and theater artists since 1993, Calgary's longest-running independent studio offers practical hands-on classes in a positive, supportive environment. Check us out at corogues.com. Company of Rogues, passionate about the art of acting.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary Maclean. You're watching Talent Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please do go to the Talent Talk YouTube channel and subscribe today. As always, the support's appreciated. And also, just let you know that this and previous episodes are available on podcast mediums such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, just to name a few. Honestly, basically wherever you probably listen to your podcast, it's probably there. Check it out. And finally, I got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors this season. It's our fifth season, but the first year we've had sponsors, and I'm very excited about that. We start off with Company of Rogues, which is a Calgary local acting studio and school. We have 6 Degrees Sound and Music, who does our sound recording and editing for our in-person in-studio sessions. Now, this is a remote interview, so not really applicable for those folks, but they've been on board since the beginning, so thank you to them. We have Workflow Film, who does the video side of things for our in-person in-studio sessions, where they do the recording and editing as well. We have Heard of One Media, Counting Coup Indigenous Film Academy, RJ Talent, and finally we have Actra Alberta. So thank you to those fine folks for helping us out this season. You've definitely helped elevate us a little bit. So thank you. Now today's guest. He's a little bit different than our standard guest lineup, but a couple of things I found interesting about this fella is that A, we share the same name. B, we share the same heritage, but he's probably more famous than I am, and probably even a little bit more cool. So, you know, I'm just very curious to see see where this all goes. He has been crowned the official chef of Scotland, which I think is fantastic. He's traveled all around the world and loves to share the traditional recipes of Scotland to whoever he can. So let's find out more about this chef royalty and welcome Gary Maclean to the show.
Hi Gary, how you doing? Thanks for having us. I'm not sure if I'm cooler, I'll be honest.
Well, you've done a lot of things which I think are cool, so that's where I put that up there.
Well, thank you. I've never been called cool before.
Thanks for joining me. You're actually in Glasgow today.
Yeah. I'm in Glasgow, Scotland. Yeah, and a rainy summer's night, unfortunately. So
stormy or just rainy?
It's just the usual sort of West Coast weather. You know, it's actually quite hot, but we're getting kind of torrential rain every hour.
Okay.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, we just got the heat today. We tend to get a dry heat here in Calgary. So, which speaking of, have you been to the Calgary in Scotland? I'm assuming you probably have.
No, I don't think so. Don't think I have.
It's I should know this. I was gonna say I think it's on the Isle of Mull, but I might be mistaken on that.
No, I've never.
Anyway,
no, I've never been.
I think we visited there last time. The family and I were there just because we're from Calgary, so we had to check it out. And I think we actually missed it. I think we literally drove by it and we're like, "Was that it?"
It's probably about 4 or 5 houses in a B road. Yeah, there's a lot of places like that. You know, the place that they've taken the name from is like 4,000 times bigger.
Yes, yeah, no doubt. So yeah, thanks for joining us today. Like I said, you are a little bit of a different guest. However, I think you've had a lot of interesting experiences with what you do. So first off, official chef of Scotland. When did that come about?
Um, it came about in 2017, if I remember. The official sort of title is National Chef of Scotland, and it's
National
part
chef.
of a kind of wider initiative called the Good Food Nation Act. And the idea behind that act that health and well-being starts with food. So it involves really sort of every aspect of food in Scotland, whether it's food poverty or food education or things like school dinners or the NHS. They're trying to make food the heart of all of that. So it's a bill that's going through stage by stage in Scotland. It's a voluntary role, and I was asked what my thought was. I did an interview for a newspaper, and I was asked my thoughts on the role. And, I was very complimentary and thought it was a great idea. And then a few weeks later, I got contacted with the high hygiene of the government to see if I'd be interested in volunteering. So 2007, so we're six years in. So it's been interesting. The kind of role has two different hats, I would definitely say. In Scotland, I do a lot with underprivileged kids. I do some stuff in prisons and children's homes and things like that, and also work with food insecurity. So it's all about using food as a kind of vehicle to try and get kids a different viewpoint in life. These are the so-called bad kids that are needing that little push, and sometimes food can just give them an escape, and give them something that they maybe didn't know they were good at. And then the other hat is when I travel, I stand there with my chest out telling the whole world how brilliant Scotland is for food. So there's definitely two different kind of hats. So my role abroad is kind of food and culture. So we're sharing Scotland's kind of sort of food and culture and tradition at Highland Games, and I do quite a lot with the Scottish government in North America, and do kind of sort of special dinners. So I've even done a few in Canada as well, where I go over and do a kind of VIP dinner and basically sell Scotland to people who import whiskey and food. So it's two very different hats.
I mean, I'm biased, but I don't think it would take much to sell us on Scotland. So
It is, to be fair, it is an easy sell sometimes. Depending what it is, really does. I think Canada's slightly easier, if truth be told, in terms of what you can actually export to Canada from a food point of view. We've got a much wider scope to get different types of food in, including things like red meat, whereas in the US, it's mostly sort of fish and shellfish because they don't import red meat from the UK. So it's different. It's different things. But it's just understanding your market and where we are. And Scottish food has always been, or Scottish food and drink has always been at the sort of Rolls Royce level. So you have to sort of sell it as the best. No one's buying Scottish to save money. Let's put it that way.
right, yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah. And I mentioned to you before the show, I've been to Scotland a few times, especially with the family and stuff like that. And yeah, we always try to find the kind of traditional Scottish pubs and stuff like that to kind of eat at and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
you
don't
won't
know
be
if they
hard. They're not
compare.
hard to find.
No, definitely not. Right, they're pretty much everywhere.
And so, in some of these pubs, in Glasgow and Edinburgh and places like that, they could be 300 or 400 years old.
Yes, and that's the other thing that
There's
appeals to me.
some real institutions. So there is,
Yeah.
particularly Glasgow. Places like the Pot Still. People travel to Glasgow just to go to that pub. So they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So where is this kind of taking you in terms of your travel? I mean, obviously worldwide. Where are some of
Yeah.
your notable places?
I've done, where have I been? I spent a week in the jungles of Colombia. I go to India a couple of times a year. I did a dinner in Barbados just before Christmas. Where was I? This year I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago doing the Chicago Games. I've done the games in Alaska, which was very, very interesting. My next games is in New Hampshire. So I'm doing the New Hampshire Scots Highland Games in September. What else? Been in Malaysia, Indonesia. What else? A lot. I'm mostly this side of the world. I did Cuba, but it's the places I'm in when I travel, which I find really interesting. So I'm in the ambassadors, residence, or I'm in the British embassies and things like that. But I've also cooked at number 10 Downing Street, Buckingham Palace, St James's Palace, Bute House, and probably my proudest moment, just harkening back to us being Maclean's, was cooking at Duart Castle on the Isle of Mull for the clan chief Maclean, which was really, really, for all the places I've been in the world, sitting having breakfast with the clan chief of a morning with his family was, and I took my son with us, which was really special. And we did a fundraising dinner to help the Maclean Castle. So it was always an ambition of mine as a young kid, even living in Glasgow, to go to Mull, and it's maybe 3 hours in the car and then an hour on the ferry, but it just seems so distant. And when I started doing things like TV shows and stuff, and I had a say in where I went. I used to do a kind of TV show where I could investigate my favourite foods and where they come from in Scotland. And I did 3 episodes on Mull. So there was so much on Mull, and it was just an excuse to get out there and sort of share the love of Mull, being Maclean.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. Yeah. I last time we were there, which I think was 2018, we had a quick conversation with Sir Lachlan there. Yeah, fine gentleman, I gotta say. It was a pleasure chatting with him. And he's like, I noticed because we obviously wandered around the castle and such, and I saw he was like that with absolutely everybody, which was great. Just anybody you stop and talk to him, you talk to them, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. He's got I think he's 82, and he is the man who's driving that ship over there. I got to spend some time with his eldest son, who is the heir. And I think the future of Duart Castle and the Macleans on Mull is good. It really is. I was really, really impressed with the whole ethos of the family and what it meant to them. And because you kind of think that you're born into that, and there's a responsibility. I suppose a wee bit like being a royal in a sort of smaller scale, but there's the same responsibility and the same time and effort and energy I think needed to keep it going, to have that, So I kind of felt, and I think he works in London. I don't know, I can't remember what he does. He's ex-military, but he's got a big business in London. But he's very fond of his future, I think, in looking after the castle and things like that.
Definitely, and my wife and I actually follow the Duart Castle on Facebook, so we do get the notices every once in a while. And I've often thought, I'm like, man, what happens if he passes on? Like, what happens? So I'm glad to hear from your perspective.
It's in good hands.
It seems strong. So that's good. Excellent. It's good to know for sure, because we're planning on going again in 2025 for our 25th anniversary. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, give us a shout when you're over.
Good trip. So you mentioned the portion that you've done some set stuff as well and things like that. What I found interesting when I was looking at your book, and I don't know if you want to bring your book up onto the screen here, because that'd be a great little segue for that. But you actually had the foreword of your recipe book done by Sam Heughan from Outlander. Yes, there it is. Amazing. And I know, like, my wife is a huge Outlander fan, so I haven't actually told her that part yet. So she'll be really excited when I tell her. So, like, I'm assuming you must know Sam, or you met him at some point, and then he was able to do that forward for you, or?
Well, actually, I don't know. We've actually never met. I was working in South Carolina at the time, and when the book was coming together, and I had a celebrity chef in the UK who was going to be doing the forward. And I got the cover sent to me from the publisher, and there was no forward name celebrity chef on the front. So I emailed them back and I says, look, where's my celebrity chef forward that I had organised? And for whatever reason, there was a loss in the communications and the forward never got done. We had basically a week before printing that I needed to find another forward, another writer of the forward. And I don't know if it's because I was working in South Carolina or whatever, but I just thought I kind of wrote the book for the North American market. So I kind of thought, who's Scottish and who's huge in American TV? And I thought Outlander, and obviously Sam's the star there. So I messaged everyone I knew in the States that were running all the kind of American Scottish societies, and no one got back to me. You know, every minute counted. And I was having a flick through Twitter, and I noticed that Sam followed me on Twitter. And if someone follows you and you follow them, you can private message them. And that's what I did. So I sent him the longest Twitter message ever. And he came back to us and said, sure. So my little note to him must have helped. But I must admit, he was amazing. We kind of told him the timeline, and I could see that he was busy because he was launching the next season of Outlander, but he still managed to get it written and proofread and everything else they need to do for these things and back to us within the time frame. So he's a lovely guy, and I'm really looking forward to meeting him. I'm doing an Outlander a conference in Glasgow University in a couple of weeks' time. So we've got, I think, about 700 Outlander fans coming, and the writer of Outlander is going to be there as well. So I'm hoping that Sam makes an appearance so that I can thank him.
Yeah, no, that'd be amazing for sure. Yeah. And again, of course, you know, my wife was a fan of the books well before the show, so she'd be excited to know that you might meet Diana Gabaldon as well. So. That's amazing that he was able to do that, though. And like, I know I've been able to get a couple guests on this show through the same route you just did with Sam as well, right? If you happen to have that same celebrity following you, then you can message, and
I
it's
think,
a little bit of luck, and it works,
people are
right?
amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, people are amazing, and sometimes, you know, all you can do is ask. You know, everyone's trying to accomplish the same stuff in life, and you know, and obviously Sam's had great success, but he seems to be the type of guy who's happy to kind of share that success. And you know, the fans of Outlander are going to absolutely love the book, and the forward is really quite witty as well. Even if you just buy the book for Sam's forward, it's a nice little insight to him and his food philosophy. And obviously his amazing Sassenach whiskey gets a mention in there as well, which is lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the book, I don't know if you want to throw that up there again, but it's coming out August 1st in North America, I believe he said, right?
Yeah, it's the book's out the 1st of August, so it's out just shortly.
Okay. And do you know where it's going to be available? I'm assuming like the Amazon. It's going
to be absolutely everywhere. If you look on my socials, on Instagram and stuff like that, there's a link to Linktree, and there's a Canadian link and a North American link where you can pre-order the book. It'll be in all good bookstores, Barnes and Noble. It will be on Amazon, so it's getting a full nationwide release.
Okay, and let's actually talk about the book a little bit. Now, you've obviously mentioned in the book a couple times traditional Scottish recipes. Where do a lot of your ideas or concepts come from? Like, I know there's some history behind a lot of it, and obviously we can't go through all the recipes, but
yeah,
if there's a couple notable ones you'd like to mention, that'd be great.
Yeah, there's you know, it's like most countries, we have our traditional dishes. In Scotland, they're very regional between north, south, east, and west. So there's dishes specific to little villages throughout Scotland, and I'll be honest that I wrote the book for a North American market. I know it was first published in the UK, but it was written for the North American market, for sure. And the reason for that is this was my second book. My first book was a cookery course, so it was to teach people simple dishes for home cooking. So it was, and then I started traveling to America. The first book was on sale in America, and everyone just presumed that it was full of Scottish ingredients, and it actually wasn't. There was no Scottish food in it at all, because when I wrote that book, I had just come off a massive TV show in the UK, and I got a book deal, and I wanted to write a book that would suit the whole of the UK, and my only rule was no Scottish. So I never put any Scottish in it at all in that first book. So I then started traveling, taking the book around the world, and everyone just presumed it was Scottish. You know, I remember I actually met a woman in New York in April, and she said to me, "Oh, I just love your first book. Your Scottish tiramisu is amazing." And she couldn't get her head around the fact that it wasn't Scottish tiramisu. It was actually Italian, written by a Scotsman. So, but I kind of felt guilty that I hadn't written anything about Scotland. And during lockdown, I was kind of working on a book project and pitching some ideas. And I started buying Scottish cookbooks on Amazon. So I would get, 3 or 4 a week, and I was just rifling through them. And I just thought there wasn't a book written that sort of told the story of Scottish food that you can actually cook. A lot of it was kind of cut and pasted recipes from really old cookbooks, in really old language and not very descriptive. And all my recipes I write are full of detail because obviously I work in education. So my whole thing is describing stuff well and being able to teach people. So I wanted to write a recipe that kind of saved our traditional recipes, but written in a modern style for a modern kitchen. So there was things that I never thought in a million years that I could put in a cookbook, because I would never put anything in a cookbook that you couldn't make yourself. I didn't want people searching the whole, the ends of the earth trying to find ingredients. But I managed to get things in there like black pudding, homemade black pudding. And the reason I could do that is because you can buy everything online for it. So, it's about $20. You can go online, you can buy the skins, you can buy the little gun that pushes the mixture into the skins, and you can buy the blood online. So my recipe uses dried blood, and you can buy that online for a couple of dollars. So I was so excited when I saw you could get all of that online. And then when you write the recipe, you can direct people. This is how I did it. Just get on Amazon and buy the ingredients. Yeah. So the world is kind of soon. 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think I'd been able to put that recipe in a book. And even things like Scotch pies, you must have had a Scotch pie in your time when you were over, the little round meat pies. So you can buy the molds online. You can, so everything that's in there is doable. Everything in there is something that you can make at home. Things like tatty scones and clouty dumplings, and they're all there. And it's amazing when you hand the book to someone, an American Scot or a Scot living in Canada, and have you got such and such, and you turn the page and lo and behold, the recipe's there. I had lunch with a restaurateur, a Scottish guy who has a really famous Scottish restaurant in Chicago. And I was chatting away to him, and he was flicking through the book almost forensically, page by page. And it was almost by magic. He would ask, have you got the recipe for stovies? And the next page would be stovies, So if you can think it, if you've had it in Scotland, it's in that book.
So that's amazing, yeah. And I know, you've got a section there for haggis, which, by the way, I didn't realize there were so many variations for that.
Well, haggis for me, I've got a whole chapter on haggis. So haggis isn't just haggis, neeps and tatties. Haggis is a really versatile ingredient in its own right. So there's things in there like pakora, and koftas that, again, aren't Scottish, but they work really well with haggis because the haggis seasons everything. I think I've got sliders in there as well. So, haggis sliders. So 50% ground beef, 50% haggis, and it makes the most amazing burgers. And if you were to make those burgers and then give them to someone at a barbecue, they wouldn't even know there was haggis in it. They would just know it was a really well seasoned, moist burger. So I had a bit of fun with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So among your travels and sharing actually, I got another question before we get to that. Because you teach as well, right? Like you actually teach cooking, and like I know some of that's with the underprivileged youths, if you will. But do you do a more general teaching for folks that are just interested?
Yeah, well, my day job is I'm executive chef at the City of Glasgow College. So I've been working in education for 26 years. So spent most of that, or half of that, I spent part-time as a culinary instructor. And then I spent about 8 years full-time culinary instructor, and then I've moved upstairs, as they say, where I am just now. So I work on international and commercial projects at the moment. So yeah, I mean, education's been I've fundamentally been at college since I was 16. Between learning, I was part-time for 8 years. And then I think at the gap of about a year, then I started part-time teaching. So it's something I've always done. It's something I'm really proud to be part of, and feel really privileged that I can sort of share my knowledge and my journey with the future of the industry.
Okay. And do you do all the cooking at home, or do you take a break at home?
Yes, I do all the cooking at home. Yeah, I've got 5 kids, and I married a chef. My wife's a chef.
Oh, okay.
But she married a chef as well, and she won.
She won.
So I do most of the cooking at home. I do travel a lot, which means my wife does it when I'm not here. But no, I do a lot of the cooking. But I'll be honest, I do enjoy it. And it's probably the only thing I do around the house. So it's my wife does everything else. So, but I do enjoy cooking. I do enjoy sort of feeding the family, but again, having 5 kids. I mean, my kids are no different from anyone else's kids. It's not like they'll eat anything that we make. I've got the same troubles in getting youngsters to eat. And my kids are a big age range as well. So my eldest is 27 and my youngest is 9, and I've got everything in between. So they're all there's a lot of, it's a busy house. I've got kids at uni, kids working, and kids in primary school. So there's a lot going on in the house.
And have any of them taken on the interest of cooking, or?
No, my youngest likes to cook. My 9-year-old likes to cook and likes to get involved, and he can make a pot of soup and things like that, which is good. I've got 3 older kids, and I've got two younger kids who are still in school. But my 3 older kids are my eldest son's doing a PhD. My next one down is he's going into militaries, Royal Marines, and my daughter is a graduate of TV and film. So they've all kind of taken a different route.
Okay, well, and that's definitely nothing wrong with that, right?
I think they've seen how hard I've worked. They probably want to avoid it. But my second oldest son, Ewan, he's, much as I'm saying he's not showing an interest in it, he does help me a lot if I have private dinners or charity events and things like that. Like the Mull dinner, I took my son Ewan, and he's an immense hand when I'm out doing these things. I'm normally on my own, so he basically, he's great at just organising stuff and packing and making sure I've got everything, everything that I should have and things like that. So, but again, his future's in the military.
That's fair. Yeah, absolutely. Do you and your wife, do you create together? Like, do you come up with other
Never.
recipes?
We couldn't make. No, never. We couldn't make toast together. No, even years ago when we first met, before we had kids, we would get roped into doing family functions and things like that. So, but we would decide who was doing it, and that would be that. We would never really cross over. We're both complete opposites, I think, in the kitchen.
That's fair. So did she have any hand in any of the recipes in the book itself, or was that all you?
Maybe not so much with the recipes, but certainly with the production of the book. See things like photography and things like that. Basically what happens is we do 2 weeks of photography for the book, and my dining room that I'm in right now gets turned into a studio. Photographer moves in, and I'll be honest, it's 20-hour days when you're doing photography. So you're working the whole day on the actual photographs and the food. And then as soon as the photographer goes away, you've got a few hours of cleaning up, and then you start the preparation for the next day. And that runs for a fortnight. So it does take a lot of support, at home, especially when there's, 5 kids running about and everyone else, people need fed and everything else. So it's definitely a team game at that stage. But writing a book is sorry.
No, you go ahead. You finish your thought.
Writing a book's quite a solitary job, in front of a laptop. You occasionally phone a friend, who maybe lives in an area of Scotland that I don't know as well. I just need to, or I'll phone someone, one of my friends from Aberdeen. I'll talk to him about the food that I've got in the book from that area, and they'll keep me right if I've missed anything. So that's only really time that you're kind of getting ideas, or you're speaking to, I speak to my wife about food growing up. What did you have at New Year? What was your food experience? What did your mum make and all that? And it was all that sort of stuff I wanted to keep in. And my wife's mum was a school dinner cook as well. So I have fond memories of going there, when I first met my wife, because we always went there for Sunday dinner. So there's a lot of tradition and a lot of family when it comes to food. And I don't think that differs anywhere in the world, but it's great that, food sort of does that for people. I do a little experiment, and it's worth trying. I'll often ask people, what's the most memorable meal? What's the best meal they've ever had in their life? And they'll ponder for a wee bit, and they'll look at you, and they'll answer you by saying that they were in a location with someone, and then it's the food. The food's third in that line of importance. So food's a whole sensory occasion, and if you can get the elements right, if you can get the atmosphere right, if you can get the occasion right, the food is elevated. So if you were sitting at your desk at lunchtime and somebody brought you up a Michelin star, a 3 Michelin star main course, it ain't going to be a 3 Michelin star main course because you don't have all the other elements. Whereas you could have a family dinner, which is quite simple, and it just raises everything, and it's because of the other elements. So it's a full experience, a plate of food. So it is, and family and tradition and memories and things like that really add to that. And that's really what the book's about. There's recipes in there from my granny, and stories from that I remember growing up about, what my family had at Christmas time, or when times were tough, what did they have, and all that sort of stuff. So it was good in that way, bringing back all of these kind of stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I liked about it, is because you could tell just by reading a lot of the information that you had in the book, that there's some history to some of that, right? So I was going to ask earlier, is from start to finish, from concept to completion, how long did you figure it took for that book to get made?
I think it's about a year.
Okay.
There's probably about 5 months writing, and there's 2 weeks photography, but there's probably a full week's work just organising the food, sorting out where the food's coming from, getting all that sort of stuff done, and then there's a fair bit on edits, and then when the book comes out, you've got book tours and signings and all that sort of stuff. So, and they kind of last for a while. A book, particularly something like this, it'll have a long legs, as they say, because it's not within a time frame. It's not kind of ultra modern cuisine. It's family. It's and in the States, I think we've got. I'm sorry, in North America, I think there's about 20 odd million people who see themselves as Scots or Scots origin. So when you think there's only 5 million Scots in Scotland, so the market's a lot bigger. And it's a great gift. I'm sure if, if someone's got that Scottish heritage, it'd be a nice surprise for them to see it. Or even an expat who's been out there a while will see food they've probably not seen since they were a kid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how much time do you figure you spend on the actual promotion, book signings, that kind of thing? Are you out quite a bit, or?
But it's pretty constant. This will be interesting because this is my first publishing deal in North America, so it'll be interesting to see the response. Because all my books, I've normally promote in the UK. So you can, when they first come out, you do a couple of weeks that's pretty full on, and most of it's in the evenings. So most of it is straight after work. You're driving to some dark corner of Scotland or the UK to go do some book signings or to do a demo. But it'll be interesting to see how the American market works. And the reality is, I'm in America. I probably do more events in North America than I do in Scotland. With the Highland Games and the different awards ceremonies and stuff that I normally do. And then you've got Tartan Week. So there's much bigger opportunities, I think, to promote alongside other events that are Scottish. Whereas in Scotland, we don't have too many Scottish events where you can sign a book, if that makes sense. So,
okay.
If you think of the hundreds of Highland Games in North America, some of the biggest Highland Games in the world are in Canada and the US. So it's quite incredible that you've got 30,000-40,000 people in one space that are talking and live in Scotland in a completely different country. My first sort of working trip to North America, I'd been to the US a lot as on holidays and stuff like that, in Disneyland and the touristy bit in New York. I remember in 2000 I went to Chicago, and it was my first trip to support Scotland, and I fell in love with North America on that trip, but I also fell in love with Scotland because I saw Scotland through different eyes. I seen Scotland through someone else's viewpoint and what Scotland has done. And I think you don't appreciate your own country until you get out it, until you get away from it, And I was amazed at the passion that North Americans had for Scotland. And I've always said, if Scottish people had the same passion for Scotland as North American Scots had, we would be a superpower.
Do you know what some of your US tour looks like as well, or yet?
No, I think my next trip is I've got a possible trip in August, which isn't fully confirmed. But my next trip in the diary is September at the New Hampshire Highland Games. So I'll be there. I'm there. It's a 3-day game. So I'm doing culinary demonstrations and book signings.
Okay.
But I do that every September. I have done for 7 years, out with the COVID years.
I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I definitely appreciate your time on this. And thanks to anybody who ends up watching this, and hopefully we can sell some books for you.
No, brilliant. No, appreciate it. And thanks for having us. Thanks for having us. It's nice to see another Gary Maclean doing well.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks, folks, for watching, and we will see you next week. And if you don't mind hanging around for a couple minutes, that'd be great. Bye, all.